Swamini Te Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. We sincerely thank you for joining this series of Mahabharata Lesser Known Stories. We have just concluded the series on 12 Mahajan, their life and pastimes. And that series, we have talked about life and pastimes of 12 Mahabhagavat, who are the greatest devotee of Lord Krishna. We thank you again for your continued support and patronage, and we are now starting a very special session on the interesting and lesser known stories of Mahabharata. We actually read lot of novels, lot of information from many different languages, many different countries, many different civilizations, but we hardly know the incidents which has happened in our Vedic philosophy or Sanatana philosophy, and those stories or those incidents are all real. If you really think, the Vedic literature is primarily divided into two areas, Shruti and Smriti, where Shruti is the Vedas, which are actually coming to us directly from Supreme Personality of Godhead. Smriti is something which is written. But the Shruti and Smriti, when we read or we hear, we may not understand very easily. And therefore, in different part of these yugas, disciples or devotees of Lord Krishna, they have come to the earth and play their part to teach us how to lead the life. Mahabharata is the very epic poem of more than 1 lakh verses and with 18 chapters. And in Mahabharata, there are all kind of rasas or all kind of bhav is there. Whether you say friendship, whether you say enmity, whether you say anger, whether you say love affair, whether you say devotion, everything is there. So, I will not deal the entire story of Mahabharata because there are enough episodes or enough TV serial available on this. What I will deal primarily onto some of the important and lesser known stories which are very interesting, and I feel it is important for all of us to know. If you want to see my 12 Mahajan series, you can see the link which I will give into the description. And as usual, in this series also, I will create many episodes, and in every episode, I will put into the playlist from which you can see the other episodes as well. Okay, let us start today's episode. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and his works, especially Shrimad Bhagavatam, as many of the stories are based on the narration from his work. Also, as a disclaimer, I would like to give a big thanks to the numerous uploaders of pictures in internet, as I have used some of them. Mostly I see that Ramayan and Mahabharat have 3 streams inbuilt. As we can see in Prayag, there are three streams, Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati. Similarly, Ramayan and Mahabharat also has three streams inbuilt. Ganga may be the knowledge or wisdom part. Yamuna may be the entertainment, which these two we normally see very clearly. But as Saraswati, which is hidden in Prayag, similarly in Ramayana and Mahabharat, the value imbibed on it or the lesson we learn from the value, that portion we do not catch very easily. Also, another portion, what quite often is very attractive to me on these two great epics or on these two Itihas is why Mahabharata was told. Mahabharata was told to create a background so that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, can sing Gitoponishad, which is popularly known as Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada compares the cowherd boy Krishna is milking the cow, which is Vedas, and the calf Arjuna is drinking the milk. And as other than calf, we the commoner are getting chance of drinking the same milk, which is the Gita Gyan. The knowledge and wisdom given by Gita would not have been available to us if Gitoponishad was not said and it is part of Mahabharata. What we know, Adi Shankaracharya was the person who took away this 700 verse from the 1 lakh verses and created this Gita. And in Mahabharata, we also see that there is a way which teaches us how to lead our life in the path of unadulterated bhakti. It is shown by Pandavas Draupadi Kunti how that bhakti needs to be done. Despite of all difficult situations coming to their life, they never left the path of bhakti or faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, in this series, I am not going to deal all these philosophies. I am going to tell you some stories which are very interesting, which are normally not discussed, and those stories are so interesting that they may give a run for money to the Harry Potter stories. People leave fictitious stories Harry Potter, but they don't get into Ramayan Mahabharat to get those stories, and that is my objective, to bring forward those stories. So I request you to continue this series and please see it till end. Also, in Mahabharata, we use the word hero and anti-hero. We never use the word villain, because in those days it was Dwapar Yug, and in those days the human qualities were very high. If you read Mahabharata, even during the evening, the two sides who were fighting, they used to come together, mingle each other, they used to share pleasantry, and next day they used to again fight. Do you think that is possible in today's world? In the world of terrorist war? No. So in Mahabharata, there is no villain. There are heroes and anti-heroes. A brief introduction of Mahabharata I will give in this introduction series, and then I will go to specific stories, maybe from the next episode. The Mahabharata story or tales of events, it actually started before the starting of present age of Kali. So it was at the end of the Dwapar Yug, and some 50 centuries ago, Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to his friend and devotee Arjuna. Dhritarashtra and Pandu were two brothers born in the Kuru dynasty, descending from King Bharata, who is the former ruler of the earth, and from whom the name Mahabharata was derived. Because Dhritarashtra, the elder brother, was born blind, the throne that otherwise would have been his was passed down to the younger brother Pandu. When Pandu died at an early age, his 5 children, Yudhishthir, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula and Sahadev, came under the care of Dhritarashtra, who in effect became for the time being the king. Thus the sons of Dhritarashtra and the sons of Pandu grew up in the same royal household. Both were trained in the military art by the expert teacher Drona, Acharya Drona, and they are counseled by their revered grandfather of this clan, Bhishma. Yet, the sons of Dhritarashtra, specifically the eldest son Duryodhana, hated and envied Pandavas. And the blind and weak-minded Dhritarashtra wanted his own sons, not those of Pandu, to inherit the kingdom. Thus, Duryodhana, with Dhritarashtra's consent, plotted to kill the young sons of Pandu, and it was only by the careful protection of their uncle Vidur and their cousin Lord Krishna that the Pandavas escaped the many attempts against their lives. Now, Lord Krishna was not an ordinary person, but he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, who had descended to earth and was playing the role of a prince in the contemporary dynasty to help the people in this area. Ultimately, however, the clever Duryodhana challenged the Pandavas to a gambling match in the course of their fateful tournament. Duryodhana and his brothers took possession of Draupadi, the chaste and the devoted wife of Pandavas, and insultingly tried to strip her naked before the entire assembly of princes and kings. Krishna's divine intervention saved her. But the gambling match, which was rigged, cheated the Pandavas of their kingdom and forced them 13 years of exile, and 1 year they were supposed to remain completely incognito. Upon returning from exile, Pandavas rightfully requested their kingdom from Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. Duryodhana bluntly refused to yield any part of the land. Duty bound as princes to serve in public administration, the 5 Pandavas reduced their request to 5 villages. But Duryodhana arrogantly replied that he would not spare them enough land into which to drive a pin also. Throughout all this, the Pandavas had been consistently tolerant and forbearing. But now the war seemed inevitable. Nonetheless, before war, Lord Krishna himself took the role of a messenger, and he went to the court of Dhritarashtra to plead for the 5 villages, and even he was insulted and he was tried to be incaptivated. And thus Lord Krishna had to show his universal form or Virat Roop. But Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana was really so blind, even seeing that Virat Roop also they could not recognize Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The epic of Mahabharata was written by Ganeshji and it was narrated by Vyasdev. It was written in such a way that the condition was Vyasdev will not stop for a single word and Ganeshji would not write a word without understanding that. So it is really a great epic written by Ganeshji and composed by Vyasdev himself. However, the Pandavas were the men of the highest moral stature, understood what Dhritarashtra wanted. Yet, Krishna made all arrangement and he wanted a fair trial. So when in Dwarika, Duryodhana, the eldest son of Dhritarashtra, and Arjuna reached there, then Krishna told that he would not personally fight, but whoever so desired might avail himself or Krishna's powerful army. But Duryodhana, the political genius, snatched Krishna's armed forces, thinking that the material strength is the main reason of winning. But Pandavas were always eager to get Krishna himself, and they got Krishna. In this way, Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna, taking it upon himself to drive the ill-fated bowman's chariot. This brings us to the point at which Bhagavad Gita begins, with two armies arrayed ready for combat, and Dhritarashtra anxiously inquiring of the secretary Sanjay, what did they do? We all know 18-day long war was won by Pandavas. Bhishma left his life when he saw that everybody is happily situated in the throne, and during his end of the life, he had the full glimpse of Lord Krishna himself. In my series of 12 Mahajan, their life and pastimes, I have narrated a full story of Bhishmaji, who had very difficult and very interesting life to lead. Mahabharata is a epic which will continue to stay in human civilization till civilization exists, and the glimpse of Mahabharata will be portrayed, will be told by many people at many situations. I have no qualification to talk of Mahabharata. I have picked up a few small stories which are very interesting, which generally we do not understand, we do not read, and which has large value to be imbibed with. So therefore, let us start our series after this. Let us begin different chapters of Mahabharata. The first chapter or Parva of the 18 Parvas is known as Adi Parva. And in Adi Parva, since it is the beginning, here the description of Mahabharata as narrated by Sauti Rishi, who was assembled by the rishis at Noimisharanya, is explained. Moreover, the narration of Mahabharata made during the Sarpasastra Yagya of Janmenjay by Vaishampayana at Takshila also was part of this Parva. Adi Parva talks of the Bharat dynasty from whom the Mahabharata has been named, and his story of their all birth and death of the initial kings. After Adi Parva, the next important Parva is, second Parva is called Sabha Parva. Sabha Parva is a account of how Mayadanava built the palace and how that Indraprastha was created, and that palace was so beautiful. Moreover, the then courtly life of the emperors has been narrated very fascinatingly in this Parva. Other contents of the Sabha Parva is the Rajashiya Yagya of Yudhishthir, Shishupal Vadh, the game of dice, and lastly, the exile of Pandavas to the forest. This one Parva consists of 9 sub-Parva. The third episode is the Aranyak Parva or Bon Parva. In Aranyak Parva, which is the third book in the sequel, this narrates the tale of 12 years of exile of Pandava in the forest. It also talks about that how the Kuru clan, two branches, they chose different path, one in the path of righteousness and bhakti, and another in the path of material sense gratification. The next part we come is the Virat Parva, and is the Virat Parva, that is the year where Pandava had to stay incognito in Virat Raja's court for 1 year. And in this, Pandavas, how they disguised themselves and also how they dealt with difficult situation without their own identity has been very largely described. This shows a very big lesson to us that whatever situation they faced, they always took shelter of Supreme Personality of Godhead Lord Krishna, and they never complained. After Virat Parva, the next Parva is Udyoga Parva, which is also called Book of Effort. And in this Parva, this gives a narrative how Pandava successfully fulfilled all the condition of the banishment, and after their exile, they wanted back Hastinapur, and Duryodhana took a choice not to offer them anything, and that left to offer Pandava nothing but the way of war. This Parva consists of 11 sub-Parvas. Next we come to the Bhishma Parva. Bhishma Parva shows with a overture of the revelatory and unnatural women. It is the 6th book of the chronology from among the 18 Parvas of Mahabharata, and this Parva contains a very lucid presentation about the legend Bhishma. And next Parva we learn about Drona Parva. Drona, the martial art teacher of Kauravas and Pandavas, in the 7th Parva of the 18th Parva, his narration of his major episode of Kurukshetra war is given here. And also, Drona Parva portrays the strong condemnation of the wicked prince Duryodhana and his brothers. Mahabharata has an important role for Karna, and Karna Parva is almost inseparable component of the 18 Parvas of Mahabharata. This Parva flows with the introduction of Karna, who was born to Kunti before her marriage. This Parva comprises of only one sub-Parva and speaks of the battle of Kurukshetra in detail. Another foremost important Parva is the Shalya Parva, and a major section of battle of Kurukshetra has been narrated in this Parva. This 9th Parva comprises 4 sub-Parvas, and this describes the last day of the battle and also describes in detail about the pilgrimage of Lord Balaram. Sauptika Parva is also known as the Book of the Sleeping Warrior, and it consists of 3 sub-Parvas. This is the book of the 3 warriors who sided with Kaurava in the great war of Kurukshetra, and they were Ashwathama, Kripa and Kritavarma. Sauptika Parva narrates the tale of these 3 warriors in great detail. After that we come to Stri Parva, and this Stri Parva is widely described how the women of Mahabharata, including Gandhari, Kunti and other women of the Kurus and Pandavas, lament the death of their kith and kin in the battle of Kurukshetra. This Parva consists of 5 sub-Parva. Shanti Parva consists of 3 sub-Parvas, and it gives an account of the crowning of Yudhishthira as a king of Hastinapur. The instructions are given by Bhishma to the newly anointed king, also described in the same parva. Anusthana parva comprises the two sub-parva. It is also called Book of Instruction, and in this Anusthana parva is demonstrated Bhishma's description of the 9 duties which belong to the all 4 orders, including of the suppression of the anger, truthfulness, justice and forgiveness, begetting children by one's own wife only, purity, avoidance of quarrel, simplicity and maintenance of dependence. Pandavas chose these paths and they become victorious throughout their life. This parva is actually important because it talks lot about how Brahma created the Varnashram Dharma and how it has to be followed in daily life. Ashwamedhik Parva is the 14th Parva of Mahabharata, and this is also known by Book of Horse Sacrifice. In this Parva, the royal ceremony of Ashwamedha Yagya or horse sacrifice, which was conducted by Yudhishthira, is explained. This book also gives an account of the world conquest by great Pandava and Arjuna, and also narration of Anugita to Arjuna by Lord Krishna. Ashrambasik Parva, which is the 15th Parva from the epic Mahabharata, it has got 3 sub-parva, and in this parva, a detailed account of Dhritarashtra, Gandhari and Kunti after the battle of Kurukshetra has been given, along with their eventual deaths in the forest fire where they were living in a hermitage in Himalayas. Vidura, the most virtuous person and meritorious person in the parva, and in the Ashrambasika Parva, Yudhishthira came to know from Narad the extinction of the race of Vrishnis. In Mushal Parva, which is the part of the Lord Krishna's family dynasty story, this consists of only one sub-parva, and it was described how infighting between the Yadavas with Meses or Mushala eventually led to the destruction of the Yadavas. Mahaprasthanika Parva, or the book of great journey, is the 17th Parva of Mahabharata. This Parva consists of single sub-parva, narrates the moment of great journey of Yudhishthir and his brothers across the whole country, and also elucidates their final ascent to the great Himalayas, where each Pandava falls except King Yudhishthir. Sarga Arahan Parva, or Book of Ascent to the Heaven, is the last of the 18 Parvas of Mahabharata. This Parva consists of a sub-parva, and it elaborately describes the period of the final test of Yudhishthir and the return of the Pandavas to the spiritual world. This Parva finds an extensive description of the god or Dharma questioning Yudhishthir about the decision of not arranging proper cremation of his own brothers. In addition to these 18 Parvas, Harivangsha Parva or Harivangsha Purana, to be more specific, is also considered part of Mahabharata, which describes the life of Krishna, which was not covered in the 18 Parvas. As we see in later part, after creating Vedas, Mahabharata and everything, when Vyasdev was not very happy, then Narad Muni, his spiritual master, told him to write explicitly about Lord Shri Krishna. And in addition to Harivangsha Purana, therefore Vyasdev composed of Shrimad Bhagavatam, which gave the entire description of Lord's pastime and his life. So, these are the parvas, or these are the chapters of Mahabharata. As I mentioned in the previous slides, that the entire Mahabharata was created and staged by Lord Krishna so that he can speak of Bhagavad Gita. He had an objective of annihilating the evils and the demonic people or people with demoniac mentality. Also, the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which he narrated to the sun god much earlier days, beginning of the Satyajug, that knowledge was lost because of the misinterpretation of the people. He had to say that knowledge, and therefore he chose to create that so that that knowledge stays even till today's age. God was also descendant himself because he wanted to give association to all his devotees, and as he tells in Bhagavad Gita, Paritranayo sadhunang vinashayo cha dushkritam dharma sangsthapanarthayo shambhavami juge juge. He came so that he can make the earth free from the evil people. The load of the earth he had to reduce. And while doing so, he chose not to raise the arm or use the weapon, rather use the Kshatriyas to do that. In the Varnashram Dharma, which is the original Dharma of Sanatana, Kshatriyas are supposed to protect. Sha means heart, and Triya means Tradhatu is Trayote ja Kshatriya. Somebody who is heart, he has to be protected by Kshatriya. But when the evil Kshatriyas like Dhritarashtra or Duryodhan or Karna, they come into picture, then God has to come down. Now, Mahabharata is a great epic, and it is very fascinating to know the whole story, but which will only concentrate on the stories which are lesser discussed, and we will try to derive the value from them. What to expect in my series? Some of the incident in advance. Advent of Koli we will read. Koch Devjani Sangbad we will read. What is the originality of karma and what is his dharma we will read. We will understand Mahabharata, which is nothing but the story of dharma, artha, kama, moksha, how different characters are playing and on all this front. We will understand why Vidur is a symbol of compassion, why Bhishma is the true legend, what was wrong with Duryodhana and Ashwatthama, why Arjuna had to die and when he died. There is interesting stories of Mangus and Pandavas. There are stories of Utthanka and Takshak, and there are many more. So let us wait for the series to begin. Hare Krishna.